You're welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be drafting a corset pattern with Queen Anne neckline. So here I've marked out some lines. I have my shoulder to bust, shoulder to underbust, shoulder to waist, and then shoulder to hip. So I'm going to use the marker to highlight the lines again so that it will be visible. So this is me marking the shoulder line, the bust line, the underbust line, the waist line, and then the full length of the top, which is going to stop around the hip area. Then we have the seam allowance to join the half length to the skirt part of the dress. So let's label what we have. This is the shoulder, the bust, under bust, waist, and then the full length of the top of this is a corset pattern with Queen Anne's neckline. So first of all, we're going to measure the shoulder, which is 16. So you take half of that, divide the shoulder by 2. That will give us 8. And then we add ½ inch seam allowance to that. So we have 8.5. So on the shoulder line, you mark 8.5. And then you mark the neck width. I'm using 3.5 neck width, though the neck width is only necessary if you are using a yoke. And then I mark 1 inch for shoulder slant. So connect the shoulder slant to the neckline. Then just marking the shoulder allowance. Always remember to mark your allowance, or you mark it on your fabric, on your bay fabric when you are cutting, when you are transferring your pattern to fabric. So I'm just connecting the original shoulder. So the next thing, we're going to take the armhole depth. Half of the shoulder, you can also use it as the armhole depth if you do not want to use the other method. So you mark the armhole depth, and then check what we have in total from the shoulder to that point, and remark on the other side so that we can have a straight line. So after you have done that, just use a ruler to connect with a straight line. So this is our chest line or upper bust line. So I'm just going to use a marker to re-highlight it again so that it will be visible. Always draft with pencil. So this is now the chest line. So the shoulder, half of the shoulder that we took before, we're going to remark that again so that we can connect the armhole depth. Half of the shoulder plus seam allowance, and then we connect it to the shoulder line to have our armhole depth. Then we're going to get the midpoint of that. This will help us in the armhole curve. Since this is a front pattern, we're going to be going in by ½ inch. And then with the aid of a fresh curve, we connect that. But before then, on the chest line, we're going to take the bust circumference divided by 4. So we can know the full length of the armhole. So after connecting that, you just use your French curve to draw out the armhole curve. If you do not have a French curve, you can always use your freehand. So connect that. And then I'm going to use the marker again to re-highlight that. Sorry about the background noise. I'm just using the marker again to highlight the armhole depth again, the midpoint, and then the shoulder. That is the initial shoulder, and then that is the shoulder with the seam. So the next thing now, we are going to mark the bust span measurement. The bust span measurement, or the nipple to nipple measurement. The one I'm working with is 8. Half of that will give us 4 inches. And then you add ½ seam allowance. So you mark it on the bust line, 4.5 on the bust line. You mark it all the way down. You mark it on the bust line, on the waistline, all the way down. So after which you are going to connect that with a ruler. Just connect that to a straight line with a ruler. So we are going to be taking a dart on the bust, on the underbust. I'm going to be taking a 1-inch dart on both sides. So the dart to take depends on how big your breast is, or the bust you are working with is. This is a bust 40. If it's a smaller bust, then you can make use of 0.75 or half. But here I'm using 1 inch on both sides. That is a 2-inch dart. I'll also take the dart on the waistline, and then I'm connecting the waist to the underbust with a straight line. So if you like, you can just take it down to the full length of the blouse, or you make it in a V form. Since it's going to be stopping around the hip area, you connect it like an inverted triangle. And then we'll come down from the bust line by 1 inch so that we can draw the curve. We can mark the curve underneath the underbust. So you use your French curve to get the curve underneath the underbust towards the bust point. So make sure you use the curvy part. So I'm just trying to make sure that is correct. So after that, you're going to determine the midpoint of the shoulder line. Use your tape to measure the shoulder, then mark the midpoint. This is the shoulder dart. So connect that to the bust line, or the bust point. With a straight line. So if you're going to, so the next thing is to determine the depth of the neckline. You need this to know how much coverage you want the corset to be. So it depends on your choice, how covered you want the bust area to be. So this is 7 inches. So if you like, you can mark 7, or you come down a little by another half. So I'm just erasing the initial mark. I'm now marking 7.5. 7.5. So that is where the corset is going to pass through on the chest area. Then I'm going to be taking a dart on the line. I'll also take 1 inch on both sides. So if you like, you can take half on one side and 1.5 on the other side, depending on the bust you are working with. So I'm just taking 1 inch on both sides, and then I'm going to replace the 2-inch dart so that the other side of the pattern will not be short. I'll just extend that chest line, then mark the 2-inch dart intake. Also on the armhole line, I will extend it by 2 inches and then create a new armhole curve. So I'm going to use the French curve to connect the upper darts so that we can draw the cup. So I'll just connect that towards the bust point, stopping like an inch before the bust line so that that place will be free. So you just connect that. So also connect the other side. So you just measure what you have there, because sometimes because of the curve there can be difference. So just measure what you have so that you can extend it to avoid any shortage when you are joining back your cup. I'll just extend that a little. It was about 0.25. So ensure to measure. So you're going to be determining the bust separation, which is 1/2 inch on fold. So when you open it up, that is 1 inch. So you mark that on the chest line and then on the bust line. That is the bust separation line. So use a ruler to connect that. And then we are going to connect that to that line to draw the cup. So you can use your free hand like this. So I'm just trying to confirm the neck depth again to be sure that it is correct. So that is 7.5. So if you want a sweeter neckline, then you come down by 1 inch. So you can mark a sweetheart neckline. So that is the front part of the cup. Now you're going to draw the under part of the cup, connect the under part of the cup. So you connect that to the bust, from the bust separation at the center through the under bust. So that is the first cup. Just trying to check that the measurement is correct. So when you are marking the other side of the cup, for this first part of the cup, the width that I had was 4 inches. So when you are marking the other side of the cup, you extend it a little by at least 1/2 inch. Okay, but if it's a very big breast, then you use 1 inch. That is because the breast is fuller towards the armhole area. Then you can also check what you have at the armhole curve, the corner there, and then you mark 1/2 of that. So this part, we are going to be cutting it out. So now you're going to connect the other side of the cup towards the armhole. So you can, from that chest line, you can come down by 1/2 inch when you are connecting it. So just use your French curve to connect that. So make sure that those two places that they are the same in length, so that there will be no shortage when you are joining the cups. So I'm just trying to confirm that it is correct. Remember, we extended the other side up with about ½ inch. So now there's a little difference. So I'm going to extend it by like quarter. So once you have confirmed that, just connect again towards the armhole. So when you are drafting your pattern, you have to be sure that your pattern is correct. So you're going to be marking the other side of, completing the other side of the cup. So use the French curve. So position it in a way that you will get the fullness of the bust. So this is cup 1 and then this is cup 2. So just go ahead and label. And then this is the yoke. If you're having a normal yoke. So I'm just going to show you how to draw the neckline if you are making use of a normal yoke. So the shoulder width the neck width I made use of before was 3.5. Then I'm going to mark 3 inches depth. So just connecting that like a square first. Because we're going to have a round neck there if it is a normal neck yoke. Then use your French curve to connect that. So if you want the corset to have a yoke, then this is the yoke part. So this is the yoke area. You cut through that point I'm marking. So for a Queen Anne neckline, you connect from the neck towards the second cup. But if you want the chest area to be covered, then you connect from that neckline towards the end of the first cup. So this is the Queen Anne neckline. So this part is Queen Anne. Then we cut this other part off. So this is Queen Anne. So normal yoke, you make use of this whole area. But for Queen Anne, you cut this part off and then you make use of this part only. So I've just used the marker to highlight the Queen Anne part of it because that is what this tutorial is all about. So that is Queen Anne. That is how to cut the Queen Anne. So I'm just going to complete the down part. I'm just highlighting again with the marker so that it can be very visible. So when you are cutting, that is the part you're going to cut. So I'm going to be drawing out the cup again. Just highlighting with the marker. That is the bust separation at the middle. And then from there, connect towards the underbust. So I'm just highlighting what we've already done. So when you measure, you should have half inch more than the under bust. The bust to under bust is 4 inches. So I'm just marking this again. Cup 1, cup 2. I'm also reconnecting the dart area. We are going to be cutting this part out. So to add a bust dart, from the bust line you come down by 2 inches, or you measure your clients from the shoulder to the waistline in front and then shoulder to waistline at the back. The difference is what you should use for the bust dart. So if you were to be a Victorian corset, we just leave this as one without cutting at the cup. And then you create more channel for boning. So we're going to be imputing our measurement, the bust circumference, you divide it by 4. So this is how to divide with your tape. First of all, you fold it into 2 and then you fold it into 4. That is because our pattern is on fold, and then this is quarter for our pattern. So you also take the waist measurement as well. Your waist, you divide it by 4 and then you replace the dart intake 2 inches. Also, you are going to be adding seam allowance. So you can add 2 inches seam allowance. It's better to have enough than is not enough. Then just connect that. So on the chest line, you also put the bust circumference divided by 4. So from the chest, so I'm just adding seam allowance to the chest line and then connect that to the bust line and then to the waistline. Sorry, to the under bust line. Now I'm going to be, so the first one, the one we just finished was the under bust. So now we're going to be marking the waistline. The waist circumference is divided by 4 and then we're going to be adding seam allowance to that. If after marking it, then you add your dart intake and then seam allowance. So we'll connect the under bust to the waistline, and then at the half length or the full length of the top, we'll mark the hip measurement. So the hip I'm working with is 46. So fold your tape into 2. That will give you half of the measurement. Our pattern is on fold, so we fold that again into 2. So whatever you have, you mark it on the full length or the half length measurement. That is the point below the waist, the lower waist. So if you had extended a dart down, then you will replace the dart intake. If not, you just add the 2-inch seam allowance. So connect that, just use your pencil to connect all that. So that is all for the pattern. So if we were to close up the dart, we'll cut through the dart from the under. And then the side of the top, we're going to curve it a little. So we extend it upwards by 2 inches and then use a fresh curve to connect that towards the middle. So if you want a back sweat line at this point, then you just use your straight ruler to connect the backs, the V backs. But the way I want to attach it, I want to be attaching to the skirt. I'll be creating the backs on the skirt. So that is all for our pattern. I'm just highlighting again with the marker. So we are going to be cutting out the pattern. So before you start cutting, you close up the bust dart so that in case of any shortage, you have enough paper to do that, cover it up. Or you add extra allowance when you are cutting to avoid any shortage when you close up the bust dart. So when you are cutting out the queen Anne, add seam allowance to that. So if you're to be a normal yoke, you just cut only the neckline as I'm doing. There you cut the shoulder. Don't forget the shoulder seam, the shoulder seam allowance. And then add seam allowance to the armhole curve. So if you're to be a normal yoke, this will be the yoke. So this is the yoke for a normal, this is a normal yoke. But for a Queen Anne, we now cut it out. So you extend your hand out by ½ inch. But for full coverage, extend your hand out by 1½ inch before you cut. Because after cutting on my fabric, I realized that it was smooth, so I had to add fabric to that. So if you want your Queen Anne to cover well, you cut on the first breast cup, close to the first breast cup. Or as you are cutting this pattern, you just extend your hand out by 1½ inch. So for a Victorian corset, you will not cut out the cup. You just cut through the dart area, and then for the center front, you can also cut the middle of the center front again to create another bony channel. So you just cut it out. So you can use this pattern for a Victorian corset. You won't cut out the cup. You just leave it like this. And then, so this is the bust that cut through towards the middle. Don't cut through completely. And then we close it up. So you can use your paper tip to close that. Your masking tape or paper tip to join it together, to close it up. So if it's a Victorian corset, you leave it like this. Then you just create bony channels on them. So for a normal corset, you cut out the cup. You cut out the cup, then we have the center front and the cups, and then the side front. So that is our cup 1. So this is the center front. Always label your patterns. And then for the cup 2, because you have joined the bust dart, you just use the French curve to reconnect the cup area again to avoid any shortages. So just blend that out again before cutting. So you see the cup aligns, so we can cut out now. So this is our cup 2, and then just mark the cup, the position of the join, of how you're going to join it, so that you don't get confused with the patterns later. So I'm just trying to make sure that it is curvy and it's not sharp. So you can see you can join it. So this is the side front. So if you want this, the center front and the side front as one piece, then you can join it together with a paper tip. Just put it together like this and use your paper tip to join it together, and then it will be as one. So you put it together. If you want it as one, put it together like this. Then use the paper tip to gum it together. Then you are cutting on your fabric. When you are cutting on fabric, you cut it as one, and then this cup area, you add half-inch seam allowance. Half-inch seam allowance around the cup area. But I'm not going to be cutting it as one. So this is the curved part of the waist, just to give the waistline a shape. So that is all for the pattern. So this is the pattern, the complete pattern. See you again.